September 18, 2021. Amanda Tiger, Island Renovations, rain. Amanda Tiger went into vacation rotation a week or so ago and seemed to really be enjoying herself. At 25, she amused all of us who watched the live webcams in there with her determination to jump up onto the platforms rather than use the old lady ramps we installed. I think her propensity to climb and jump is what kept her so fit. Google killed off the Sites program we use for monitoring the cats, and one of the best features was that it sent me, Jamie, Victor, the vets, etc., an email every time someone posted a note about a cat's health or a maintenance issue. The new system requires that each of us check the charts online every day, and I haven't gotten into that habit. I didn't know that Amanda didn't come up for food Monday and Tuesday. That, in and of itself, isn't a cause for alarm. The cats often like to flex their independence by refusing to do as asked when they can put so much distance between themselves and their keepers in the 2.5-acre vacation rotation. On Wednesday, when she was caught coming into the roof section for a drink, she was locked in there to try and get her to eat. She still refused and seemed lethargic and was coughing. By Thursday morning, when she still didn't want to eat, Dr. Justin Boorstein was called, and he arrived a little after noon. Her coughing was much worse now, with eye and nasal discharge, and she was high-stepping as if there were some neurological issue. He said, even if he could prescribe fluids and medications, that she'd never tolerate the fluids, and the best he could offer her might be a couple of months of intensive treatments. Unless the diagnostics showed something much easier to cure, we agreed that this was probably the get-out-of-jail-free card for Amanda Tiger. Her x-rays showed that her failing kidneys were full of stones, and that wasn't going to get better. She had some lung congestion, but not as bad as we would have expected. Her lab reports on her organ functions showed that, as expected for her age, she was shutting down. Dr. Justin said it would be inhumane to wake her up, so we euthanized her in her sleep. Since 2 of her keepers had recently had COVID-19, despite being vaccinated and wearing masks, I can't help but wonder if Amanda did too, so I asked for her to be tested. We don't have access to Tiger tests, so we used the home test for people, and she tested positive. I said, we need to get Tiger tests or whatever is being used and be prepared for this. Afton called IDEXX for their protocols and shipped off a second test accordingly. We had not used the Zoetis vaccines because Dr. Justin said he thought our population was so old that we'd lose more of them to the stress than we would save, given our strict rules on masks around the cats and their food. Ironically, I was interviewed Friday by Patrick Wacher, who is a Conan Scholar and research assistant at USC Annenberg Center on Communication, Leadership, and Policy. He had scheduled this weeks ago, as he was doing his grad thesis for a master's in immersive journalism, saying, quote, "My project is specifically about wildlife in the time of COVID. I am specifically interested in hearing different perspectives on the new experimental vaccine that is being administered to many zoo and sanctuary animals in the United States right now," unquote. We had a nice talk, and I told him about Amanda. I agreed to work with him on the thesis as we learn more about COVID-19 and big cats together. I emailed the following to him today. The tiger who lives next door to Amanda Tiger is Aria Tiger, and she presented with coughing yesterday. So, using the same protocols recommended by IDEXX, our amazing operations manager, Afton Tasler, managed to get her to sit still for a nasal swab. That was overnighted to the lab in Sacramento, but they are telling us that it has about a 5 to 7 day report time. I'll let you know what happens with both samples. The vet, Dr. Justin Boorstein, recommended antibiotics for Aria, mostly to deal with her ongoing pressure sores. If you read her bio page, you will see that we have been treating her since her arrival. While on antibiotics, the skin heals, but within a couple of weeks of finishing them, the sores start to open up again. So he recommended a much longer treatment time. This won't help her deal with the virus, but it will help keep her from succumbing to other issues while she's fighting whatever she's fighting. I read in the article today that the cats tested at the zoo were done via fecal samples. Do you know anything about how that testing is done and by whom? Amanda and Aria both have enclosures that are 7,200 square feet each. We don't use indoor and night houses, so they are never confined to small spaces like zoos. Their cages are at least 10 feet apart, and since March of 2020, we have mandated masks while feeding or cleaning the cats and while handling their food. On August 2nd, we notified our staff and volunteers about the Delta variant, asking them to step up their safety measures. Mostly, I wanted to be sure they weren't being careless when they were off-site, as I can control what they do while here. On September 8th, we alerted the staff and volunteers that 2 of our green level keepers, lion, tiger, leopard, jaguar, and cougar keepers, had tested positive and asked that everyone get vaccinated if they were holding out. I figured that even if they made excuses before now, that they would comply if they knew how dangerous it could be to the cats. We mandated vaccines for staff, interns, and all new volunteers at that time. We are still discussing mandating vaccines for current volunteers. The 2 keepers who tested positive on September 7 have been the first known positive cases in our workforce, which consists of about 70 people now. There were about 90 staff and volunteers at the beginning of the pandemic on March 15th of 2020, but many were admin volunteers who did tours and people-oriented programs that we don't offer anymore. If your thesis requires photos and videos, let me know and I can share some with you. For the cats, Carole Baskin, CEO of Big Cat Rescue. Walking in the rain. Yesterday, as I was biking home, it began to rain. I found myself squinting against it and being annoyed. And then I remembered my childhood. Rain was the perfect excuse to go for a long walk. I loved walking in the warm summer rains. So when did that change? I decided to embrace it. Had a lovely ride home. Island renovations. Working with the morons who are doing renovations to my home has really made me appreciate the level of competence in our volunteers and staff. Most of them tested as 1s on the Enneagram, which are the perfectionist improvers. Clearly the only kind of people who typically last in our system. Jeff Lowe, Department of Justice hearing. The judge and the DOJ are going soft on Lowe, giving him 2 more weeks to comply and show up for another hearing. The DOJ says they will forego money judgments if Lowe just surrenders animals that he's hidden before the seizure. There is no way they would know if he complies with that, since it's doubtful they have any idea how many or where. The only interesting thing reported was that Jeff and Lauren said they would surrender their U.S. citizenship to evade us. That made no sense, as there isn't any more we can do other than maybe get a $20,000 charging order against them for damage they did to the GW Zoo. I think they feel the noose tightening regarding the sex trafficking that Alan Glover says he's reporting them for, and that's why they may be planning to flee the country. It appears they will just use our lawsuit as an excuse. If you're enjoying my diary, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find other ways to connect to me over at bigcatrescue.org/Carole.Baskin.